Well, here we are at Fir Park where it's finished. Motherwell 1, Rangers 1, and Rangers' title chances have taken a massive blow. Tonight it looked for all the world that Rangers were going to get it over the line. Nico Raskin gave them an early lead after 6 minutes, but if anybody had to score, it was going to be the on loan Celtic man Stephen Welsh, who equalised for Motherwell just before the end there. I don't think it's something that was undeserved. I think Motherwell played the better football. Motherwell, for a lot of that game, absolutely battered Rangers. Another case of Rangers not taking their chances, and they paid the price. In a week where Hearts and Celtic found ways to win, Rangers found a way not to.
Yeah. Motherwell, I think Motherwell are unfortunate to not win, Blair. And I think two things can be true at the same time. You can still say Danny Rose done a great job to get Rangers back in the title race. Rangers would be top of the league if the league started when he started the job. And you can say that he's done that through clean sheets and set pieces and plain margins and all the things that we go on about a lot. But you can also say that was illuminating tonight, just how comfortable Motherwell felt on the ball. Rangers only made 180 passes according to the live stats, 69% of which were successful. It was a tale of, I think, a team that, really process driven. The word philosophy has been banned on the Rangers review because of what happened earlier this season. I think that's the football that Russell Martin spoke about earlier in the campaign. And listen, as I say, it's unrealistic, I think, Blair, for Rule to implement a system like that and an on-ball style like that mid-season when you've got so many games and so many injuries. However, I still think you've got to look at it and go, wow, Motherwell were really impressive, and there's a limit to what Rangers have done in just winning, and I think they've done really well to get there. But yeah, tonight I thought you saw the limitations of it. Yusuf Chermiti has two big chances for me. I think what Rowe will lament is if he takes one of them, then again he's played the margins in a game where his side, played brilliantly for that opening goal. That was the most comfortable Rangers looked on the ball all night. I thought when that move got pieced together, I thought maybe we were going to see Rangers try and play through the press. They couldn't. Motherwell were just overwhelmed them too much on the ball. And then when it was Motherwell building up, I feel like Rangers' press really stunted them.
Yeah, you look at that first half, and I don't think it's hyperbole to say that Motherwell, if they took their chances, could have scored 3, at least. I think that the way that they played through Rangers and created much more opportunities, it was stark, to say the least, in that first half. I turned round to you at one point, I think we were about 20 minutes in, and I just said how interesting is the wrong word, but how noticeable is probably the better word, that how comfortable the Motherwell players look on the ball, how happy they are to receive it in any sort of situations. I don't want to pick on him, but Yusuf Chermiti, compare and contrast, he looks like a player who is just, the things were bouncing off him anytime he gets up there, and then you add that wonderful chance he has to make it 2-0, where he just hits it straight at the goalkeeper. That is one of these moments that once again in this season we look back at and go, that is the time the Rangers profligacy will absolutely kill them in this title race.
100%. I'm trying not to shake because I've not put on. I stupidly did not wear my big jacket, so apologies if I am. It's not the camera, it's me.
He's not shaking with anger.
I thought there was quite a few poor performances. Look, James Tavernier gave the ball away way too much. I agree with you. Chermiti, just a kind of conversation we've had too often where the incision he showed at Parkhead has been an isolated incident rather than the start of him doing that quite consistently. I thought the substitutes were a bit strange. Rule did hint pre-match that basically some players weren't fully fit, but if Scott Olsen and Robbins are on the bench, could they not come on slightly earlier? Nadiri comes on alongside Chermiti, but again, because of how much time Rangers were spending in their box, I didn't feel that helped them to get up the pitch. For me, there's big similarities with this game to the Hibs game. No, Hibs didn't dominate the ball like Motherwell did, but they still had the better of the chances. I think their expected goals was about 3 times of Rangers. And on that day, Rule basically said, look, we'll take the point. I'm not going to get too down. And I'd imagine he'll be slightly similar tonight because he will know that. I think there's an argument that Motherwell are the best footballing team in the country. Definitely. And if you look at the result and the performance they had against Celtic,
I don't think there's an argument. I think you can say that they play the best football in the country. Yeah,
and I think And when Rule, I turn to you, when Rule brought on Manny Fernandez at 75 minutes, Motherwell get the red card. Not even mention that Motherwell went down to 10 men. That to me was a real parallel with what Russell Martin did here on the opening day of the season, where he didn't bring on an extra centre back, and partly as a result of that, I think Motherwell equalised. Rule did that today. He was the pragmatist, but much like against Hibs, I think that Rangers slightly fortunate to get away with a point. And I go back to the key point for me. You can say he's done a brilliant job, which I think he has, absolutely. But you can also say that because of the nature of this season, because it's hard to judge really his team's set up on the ball because of the limited times he has had. There's a limit to that. There's a limit to just winning, and you saw that in real contrast tonight to what Motherwell have done right throughout the season, and how they've matured as a team since they were quite dominant against Rangers in the opening day of the campaign, I guess.
Let's go back to about 3 hours ago when the team comes out and Danny Rowe makes that starting 11 selection. I think it was met with great consternation in the press box and in the terraces of Rangers fans. I think that, going by the comments on the pre-match show, generally the feeling was he's got this wrong, and he seems to have taken maybe one eye off this game. Maybe he was looking ahead to Hearts, I don't know, but it definitely did strike me as a side that maybe wasn't at the very, very peak of its powers, and you could maybe pick holes in it, and maybe, is it saying after the fact, having 2020 hindsight vision? Possibly, but I think you ask a lot of Rangers fans and they'll go, I don't think that was the best team that started that game tonight.
It'll be interesting to hear what he says in the press conference when we go down, because as I say, he did hint on Rangers TV. He basically said, I've said it in a press conference before, I'm paraphrasing, but you sometimes get information on the day of the game about a player. So you presume that played into it, and he changed things in the second half. Moore was kind of the free man, Gassama was from the left. I thought Gassama was another player who had a poor game, ineffectual. For me, Giga and Suter did well, Raskin did well at points, Diamande did well at points, and Chugwane.
I thought Mikey Moore got lost.
Yeah, improved in the second half for me, but in the first half, because again, it was just such a stark difference, Blair, between when, I'm going back to this point every time you ask me a different question, but you know, the difference when Motherwell had the ball compared to Rangers. What was it, the wrong team? I think a lot of how tonight is framed depends on Hearts at the weekend, because again, what's Rule's record since he came into the club domestically? He's won, I can't think off the top of my head, he's drawn 3-4 games he's lost. How many games has he lost in the league?
I don't think he's lost any in the league, has he?
Has he not?
He lost to Hearts. He lost Hearts to Tynecastle, but I think that's his only defeat.
Yeah, which, if you said that again when he came in, you'd say that's pretty good going. I realise in the nature of tonight is deeply frustrating because of that performance and result. If Rangers are able to overpower Hearts and play Hearts at their own game on Sunday and they go 3 points behind, you're looking at this and Hibs away and thinking a decent point here and there.
Yeah.
However, I don't think Rangers can win the league. I think they're going to struggle to win the league with performances like that on the ball, because they still have to play Motherwell again in this split. They'll still have a difficult couple of away games, and again, I just think tonight you've seen the limitations of what has got them this far, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does kind of feel as though this idea of just winning games by any means necessary eventually runs out, and eventually, if you don't have a plan, if you don't have that strategy, if you don't have that philosophy, then sometimes you're just going to come up against a late goal, you're going to come up against a team that know what they're doing, and you're going to be outplayed. Like, you look at Motherwell tonight, they were so obviously coming with a game plan, and so obvious the way that you can look at Motherwell and go, I can tell you exactly how that team plays. Motherwell are, although we say to Wanda Maswanisi, we've praised them to the hills, if they had a real goal scorer, another goal scorer up there, if they had someone else to take those chances alongside him, they are an incredible football team, because to watch them, they're wonderful to watch. To get to sit and watch that football every week, Motherwell fans enjoy it, because it's truly an excellent watch. Whereas Rangers, they have just been getting by, they have just been getting over the line, and eventually that kind of runs out, and we've seen that there. But where I do agree with you is, I don't think it's time to lose the head just yet.
If this was this time next year, and you're going, that's what, after a year and a half Danny Rowe coaches on the ball, I think you have a different conversation. Yeah. Again, I think you do just have to, criticise the team. I think that's fair. Much like I think Mikey Moore probably should have started away at Easter Road, although again, we don't know the full picture sometimes. Is he fully fit? Is he not? Does he need a bit of a rest? But Rangers played 3 different shapes tonight. Again, we were speaking about that in the closing stages, because they start with their 4-3-3, they go to a 4-2-2, then they play a 3 at the back, whereas Motherwell stick with the same shape all the time. Motherwell have 64% of the ball, Rangers have 36, whatever the one day.
And that's worked for Rowe so far.
Yeah.
That's worked for him. That's how he's got this success.
Not to this extent, maybe. I think he just came up against a much better footballing team.
Yeah.
So, I when we say words like philosophy, and some people think, what does that even mean? It's just, you're talking, I guess, do you play the game on your terms? In a game like this tonight. And I feel like what Rangers haven't done with the ball is their share of possession's gone down a fair amount under Danny Rowe, and I don't feel like they often set the tempo with games on the ball, and I feel like Motherwell did that, and I think long term to win a league you need more of that in order to be successful when you are a team who is going to see 55-60% of the ball every game.
That was a game on Motherwell's terms tonight.
Yes.
That was a game where Motherwell decided how that game was going to get played, and I think that I've seen a lot of comments coming into this game, a lot of people going, lads, it's Motherwell, Rangers should be going there, winning 3-0. That was never going to happen. That was never going to be the case. Motherwell, especially here at home, the fact that Rangers scored is actually something in itself. That's the first goal they've conceded since the 18th of October, since before Danny Rowe was manager. But I don't think it was ever going to be the case that Rangers were going to come and blow Motherwell away, because they're a good footballing team. But like I said, it's not the time for losing the head. It's time to stay calm, because all this has done for me now is make Sunday an absolute must-win. Because if you win here tonight, I'm not saying you could drop points against Hearts, but a draw against Hearts and a win here tonight, it's not the end of the world. Now that you've already dropped the points, and Hearts have won last night, and Celtic have won tonight as well, you absolutely have to beat Hearts on Sunday, or for me, Rangers can count themselves out this title race.
Yeah, I mean, Motherwell have done this to a lot of teams. They were 3-0 up at Tynecastle before they got pinned back earlier in the season. They dominated Celtic here and won 2-0. If we're having this conversation after Rangers go away to any other team in the league, really, and they've had absolutely nothing on the ball, that's when I think you're deeply concerned. It puts a lot of pressure on Sunday, and it's also that it's fine margins, because going into the final 10 minutes of this game, Blair, Rangers are winning, and if you compare that to, I think, the Celtics result tonight and also Hearts last night, they're both drawing. So in terms of the round, there's 12, however many rounds to go. In terms of the round, I think Rangers lose it, and that means that they limit their margin for error in rounds coming up.
Because, like you said, as we were driving here today, we're running out of games, and Hearts are still maintaining that lead. And you can say, Hearts might slip up, and I've said it more than anybody that I think Hearts are going to slip up. But it is getting to that stage now where you go, well, you're going to need to overtake them at some point. And Sunday, if Rangers don't get a win, that gap all of a sudden looks very, very hard to close.
Yeah, it does, because as you say, we're running out of games. So yeah, I think a night that shows the limitations of Rangers on the ball. And there was a moment even in transition at the end of the game where Miovski and Asgard maybe, and you can just see that, again, compared to Motherwell, there's not a familiar, this is where this player will be, this will be this run, because as we discuss so often on our Saturday show, you change shape off the ball, that obviously impacts what you do on the ball. There's not the familiar feeling of, I know the runs that are going to be there, I know the teammates. I don't think Danny Rowe could have done anything else. I don't think he could come in mid-season and implement it. You know, you had Graham on the show yesterday. He was telling me a story about Motherwell getting booed in the what's it called? Not the Challenge Cup, the League Cup early rounds, because Motherwell fans were because the implementation of it is hard. You couldn't have done it mid-season. However, he's done what he can to get them up to this point. You saw the limitations of it tonight. It puts a lot of pressure on Sunday, and I think it's absolutely fascinating to see how that game plays out, what his team is, and what he says to the press after the game.
Yep, and we will bring you all that reaction from Danny Rowe after this disappointing night at Fir Park. We're going to head inside because the wind chill has got extremely unbearable. But of course, stay tuned to the Rangers Review for all the fallout of this night in Lanarkshire, where it's finished Motherwell 1, Rangers 1.